أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. There's been a lot of talk about enemies, establishment, the far right, and so forth. And there's no denying that this is a reality which the Muslim community faces. But I don't want my speech today to be about external threats per se. I want it to be more introspective. I'm not here to talk about how great the 12 years that 5 pillars have been around has been, or how great we think the year ahead's going to be. I'm here to address what I believe many of you already know, think, feel, and that is going to include some uncomfortable truths, but inshallah ta'ala some promising signs for the years to come. I want to paint a picture, and that picture is the environment in which 5 Pillars was born. It existed, it survived, and inshallah will continue to thrive with Allah's permission and with your continued support. Can I see a show of hands of those who are older than the age of 40 in this room? I can't see the sisters, but from the men folk. Quite a fair amount, yeah? Now, many who are not under the age of 35, 40, they won't remember the post-9/11 era, the post-7/7 era, the wave of various counter-terrorism laws that were introduced and had nothing to do with actually preventing acts of criminality or political violence, but everything to redefine normative aspects of our faith and to censor genuine Islamic Muslim political dissent. Many of you will remember the Woolwich attack, the murder of Lee Rigby, the declaration of ISIS's criminal caliphate in 2014 and the laws and the pressure that followed thereafter, the various lone wolf attacks in London and Manchester. These were very difficult times, those 15 years post-war on terror, invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. They basically shaped, not through our choice, they shaped where the community is here today. And naturally, when these things were happening, there were conversations and debates in various circles to do with our belonging, our loyalty, our identity. Then there was a whole conversation about the need for more Muslims in the mainstream space. But I stand in front of you in 2025 and I say to you, we have a mayor of London. We have various mayors of various towns and cities. We have more than 20 Muslim MPs in the House of Commons. We recently had a mufti appointed as the interim chair of Ofsted. In terms of celebrities, athletes and actors, we have Riz Ahmed in Hollywood. We had Amir Khan, a world champion. We had Nadia from Great British Bake Off who made a cake for the Queen, the late Queen herself. I don't believe that we're deprived of Muslim representation in the mainstream spaces. We have iftars now in Windsor Castle, in Westminster, Muslim heritage events in the House of Lords. We have iftar functions at Stamford Bridge and Chelsea's football stadium. These are things that were unimaginable years ago. But with all of these efforts, I genuinely ask you, has the situation of the Muslims in the UK improved? Data, statistics would suggest no. Anti-Muslim hate crimes is higher than ever before. Negative opinions of Muslims higher than ever before. And this is with all the efforts that we have been doing for years, the things that we displayed in the video, the dawah efforts, the charity efforts, giving out roses, giving out samosa, giving out pakore, giving out copies of Quran, opening up our mosques, all of these efforts, by the way, which are very noble and have to be done and have to continue to be done because these are things we should be doing anyway. We've had all these various efforts that the community has been doing for the last 20 years in an attempt to basically harmonize our relations with the rest of society. But there's some undeniable truths, even with interfaith, those who have done interfaith in good faith and in bad faith. There is only so many times you can tell the wider British public how much we love Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Jesus. Because we have to be true to ourselves that the society that we live in are not really followers of Prophet Jesus in the first place. We can't deny the meteoric rise in the mainstreaming of Tommy Robinson. The fact that Reform is ahead in many polls and have a very realistic chance of getting power, if not 10 Downing Street, but to put many MPs in the 2029 elections. We can't deny that we have a Trump administration that does not hide its agenda, its enmity towards Islam and Muslims. We have the AfD in Germany, we have the National Front in France. We have genuine mainstreaming conversations now about remigration and mass deportations. These conversations were unthinkable 10 years ago. Now we've got podcasts that have been discussed on mainstream television about whether being English or British is linked to one's skin color. These are mainstream conversations now. We have academics from King's College debating and having podcasts about these topics. So what is the solution then? If we've done and embarked on all these endeavors, what is the solution? I say that there is not one solution. There's various solutions. And nor am I here to read the hearts and the intentions of those who want to rub shoulders in the corridors of power. If they genuinely believe with good intentions that this will help the Muslims in the UK, khair inshallah, all the best. But what we do know, from a Quranic perspective, Allah tells us in Surah Al-Fusilat, and who is better in speech than the one who invites to Allah, does righteousness and says, indeed I am of the Muslims. Very clear cut. Very clear cut. Who is better in speech than the one who invites people to Allah, does righteousness and says, indeed I am of the Muslims. Meaning I did all those great and wonderful things because I am Muslim. So the only way forward I see it, and this has been the general mindset of 5 pillars, is that to have a steadfast and self-sufficient community which is uncompromising in its values. Because we've seen 20 years and endless efforts of trying to prove that we belong here, that we are loyal to this country, that we'll even turn a blind eye to the war and destruction and the bloodshed that this government does in our name. We've attempted everything. But the situation doesn't seem to be getting better. So, in light of that, let's just revert back to what worked for the Muslims of Abyssinia, and what worked for the Muslims of Mecca, and what worked for the Muslims of Medina. And that is a strong, uncompromising, self-sufficient community. We always talk about we want to be like the Jews. Oh, you hear it all the time. Oh, brother, we need to be more like the Jews. Look, mashallah, how they lobby and look how powerful they are in the media. Let's not get into why that specific faith community are where they are. There's an entire historical and political context as to why they are where they are. But if there's one thing we can take from them, is self-sufficiency. Is the fact that they don't compromise. When it comes to their issues and their agendas specifically to do with the Zionist entity, there is no compromising. We should learn those lessons. Now, if you're planning to stay in the UK for the foreseeable future, buckle up, because there's stormy days, weeks, and years ahead. Trust me, buckle up. And what the community needs with these stormy years ahead is a Muslim media outlet, an independent Muslim media outlet that won't just weather the storm with the community, but we will drive through that storm. We will see the community through that storm, inshaAllah ta'ala. And I want to end my address with you today, since the event is called The Awakening, the Ummah's Awakening. And we're not just talking about the awakening of the Muslims of Syria, of Bangladesh, of Palestine, Sudan, of Afghanistan. No, there's an awakening happening here in the UK as well. Many of you who are grandparents, parents, older siblings, uncles and aunts would have thought that we're losing the next Muslim youth, the next generation of Muslim youth. The Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, those who are like kind of under the age of 25. I'll be honest with you, there was a feeling that forget about them being in touch with Islam or connected with Islam. They may not even speak their ancestral mother tongue. Whether it's Pari, Urdu, Punjabi, Bengali, Gujarati, wherever it is, they can barely speak it. It was one of the things that kept us in touch with our ancestral motherlands. But alhamdulillah, the Gaza genocide Yes, the Gaza genocide, 15 months of a live stream genocide has awoken this youth, this generation. Alhamdulillah. I tweeted not too long ago, I thanked Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. Thank you for doing the work which many of us thought was impossible. And that was to awaken a generation which many of us thought was lost. And I see it in universities, I see it in colleges, I see it in schools, I see it in communities. The post-9/11, post-7/7 war on terror experience that many of us grew up with, they didn't see it. They didn't see a community surveilled through the prisms of counterterrorism. They didn't see the targeting, the closure of events, the witch hunting of charities. Our youth didn't see these things. They just heard it from their uncles and aunts and the elders. But the Gaza genocide has woken them up. And we should say alhamdulillah to that. Alhamdulillah that they've built a deep connection as a result of what's happening in Gaza, which has made them more active here in the UK. My dear brothers and sisters, if you agree or believe in parts of what I've said, most of what I've said, all of what I've said, then I'll conclude this speech exactly the same way I concluded last year's address. And that is, it's over to you now. It's on your necks and your shoulders. Because we'll do what we need to do. Our 5 pillars, lots of money, not enough money, no money. We'll do it because of fard al-kifaya on us. It's an obligation we have to fulfill. But if you want us to do it to an optimum level, over to you. Over to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and who is better in speech than the one who invites to Allah, does good, and says, indeed I am of the Muslims. We have 25 minutes, half an hour for our brother Usman to convince you as to why 5 Pillars is a worthy project to support. There are those who are already supporting. There are those who are already giving. I can see faces and names that I recognize that have been supporting us since 2013. Don't slow your support down. Don't slow your support down. Increase it. Because we're not here rubbing shoulders in the corridors of power in the hope that there'll be funding available. We're not there, whether we're invited or not, that's a different question, but we're not there in those circles, those gatherings where lucrative offers are there. How many Muslim organizations have come and gone in the hope of engaging the political establishment, I'm sure with good intentions, Allahu Alam, and have taken so much money of taxpayers' money, they're not here to be seen today. They were there yesterday, they're gone tomorrow. But all the Muslim organizations that I mentioned at the beginning, they're still here. We're still here. And that's because we rely on your support. And when an organization is grassroots, when its pulse is with the community, it has longevity. Because it's one with the community. You can see photo opportunities of various new initiatives these days. We had a new one, British Muslim Network. I saw another one, British Muslim Heritage something, that took part in the House of Lords. MashaAllah, fantastic. Crack on with these events and these functions and these initiatives. We saw the Concordia Forum, an organization that had a chinwag and a jolly with Keir Starmer at the peak of the genocide. Crack on. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow, and no one knows you. And no one knows you in the street, the heartlands of the Muslim communities in the UK. No one knows you. Lastly, my dear brothers and sisters, it's an important thing that I want to mention. There's going to be no mass conversions of white people in the UK. Get that over your head. It's not going to happen. Without a civilizational push and a drive, this mass conversion that people think is going to happen, it's not going to happen. Nor is the situation of the Muslims going to improve if we have more eco-friendly mosques like the one in Cambridge. Or if Alum Rock and Tower Hamlets and BD3 and BD7 and Luton Bury Park, if they had cleaner streets and nicer mosques, people will come to Islam and they'll stop hating Islam and Muslims. Get all of this out of your head. We are in a situation where we find ourselves in, second generation Muslims, having children that are probably entering the third generation Muslims. We have something to offer the wider community and the wider society. And its fruits and its successes are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and its success is done with how much we don't compromise. We've seen what compromise is done. It's done very little. So my dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, mashayikh, over to you. Over to you to help us, to put your money where your mouth is, and to take part in this collective responsibility of taking 5 pillars to the next level. Jazakumullahu khairan walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.